In tonight's episode of The Huntsman, we're back with Keith Watson at K&A Services as he shows us how to create the deer head trophy. Keith Watson has a wealth of experience and knowledge when it comes to deer stalking and deer management, enabling him to offer a variety of services suited to the recreational and professional huntsman. Previously, we've seen Keith Watson design and fabricate his fantastic Highseats and deer feeders step by step, from cutting the metal, welding the parts and finalising the products. We then saw Keith take to the field to erect the Highseats and place the feeders with a helping hand from T1's very own Ian Harford. Keith Watson also provides guided hunts, where we've recently seen him take Kayak Bryn of the Wild Food Catering Company out to his local hunting ground. There was plenty of activity within the area, however, they were unsuccessful in finding the right deer. In this episode, Keith shows us the process of taking a deer head provided by Owen Beardsmore of Service UK and creating a trophy.
My name's Keith Watson from K&A Services. In previous videos you've saw me fabricate some Highseats and feed bins and put them out into position. On the last video you saw me take Kai out trying to get a cull animal for the freezer. Unfortunately we was unsuccessful on the shot, although we did see a lot of deer that day. The offspring of many hunts, apart from the obvious, which is the food for the table, you do create trophies. When it comes to trophy deer, the image that most people conjure up in their mind is this really big set of antlers, and in a lot of cases that's not true. A trophy is many things to many people, and it doesn't matter whether it be a young muntjac buck like this or quite a good trophy that's to my right hand side here. A trophy is an individual's deer, so it's a memory of a stalk, memory of a hunt, and for many reasons people want them on the wall. Right, what I'm going to do now is show you the step-by-step guide of my way of preparing a trophy. I'm not saying it's the best way, I'm saying it's my way. And I'm sure one or two people will learn quite a lot. We'll start with this little fella here. First thing that you've got to do, realistically, you've got to skin the head. You need yourself a half-decent knife. And I always start by pinching the side of the nose up. Carefully your fingers, because as you'll see, I've already done mine this morning. And just work your way down. Try not to score the skull with the knife blade, because if you do it deep enough, them marks will stay there forever. And as you come round the side, you'll come to the cartilage of the ear and just feel your way so you're not against the skull. And just cut his ear through. Turn him over, it's exactly the same. Pinch the nose up. You're not worried about the bottom jaw unless you're doing a full skull. And that takes off quite a large portion of skin. If you then stand the head up and carefully pinch the nose up, because your fingers are in quite a little bit of a dodgy spot. And basically what you're trying to do is take the centre of the skin on the head off. So just work your knife nice and steady. Go around the eyes. Work your way up to the antlers. The antlers form, if you wish, a natural stop that you'll feel the blade running against. Once you get to that sort of point, you get the awkward side then, which is between the antlers. If it's a big animal, it can be quite a pain in the neck to do. And what I tend to do is leave the knife alone at that point. And I use a little scalpel, which is excessively sharp, so be extremely careful with it. And if you press that between the antlers and against the skull, so you're just cutting the flesh, and work your way again up towards the coronet. Slowly, it's a little bit fiddly, but slowly you will start to peel it away. The more you take off at this point, the easier the boiling, the less time it will have to boil. And there it is. The next thing that I'll do is just run the scalpel blade so anything that's left around the base of the coronets is cut, which when you boil it will help it peel. But just by doing that, you'll lessen the boiling time. You probably will also find that the skin around the antlers is quite fatty. And the more of that you can remove, the better. Once you get to that point, depending what you wish to do with him, this particular one is going to have like a long nose cut. And this is my way of doing it. A little tip, trap the piece of wood into the vise. And if you push it against it, nothing will ever keep him steady, but you stand a lot better chance because you're pushing against it. The mark that I'm trying to look for, there's the bottom of the eye socket, which is just there. I'm putting the saw roughly ½ inch behind the eye socket and looking where the blade will go, which is just behind the ear, which you can still see from that piece of cartilage. That would be the entrance of the ear. And I'm looking to take it from just in front of his bottom, the teeth in the top jaw, behind the eye, and behind the ear. And right, once you hear the tone of the saw change, you've actually finished with the bones. So if you just cut that through, that's the bit you don't want, this is the bit you do. And you'll see it's behind his eye, behind his ear, behind his ear, behind his eye. From that point on, I'll then try and remove as much flesh as possible, including the eyes. If you cut the membrane around the eyes, I'm trying to get around the back of the actual eyeball itself, which again is a little bit fiddly. Everything to do with trophy preparation is fiddly. But if you take your time and get right to the back of the eye socket, sorry, the back of the eyeball, it's a large piece of flesh really that you're removing, and also quite a large amount of fat. If you boil it with a lot of fat on, you will impart a lot of it into the skull. So you can see there's one. So that's what it's like to begin with, and that's what it's like after I've done it. The next thing for me is just to put little scores across the big area to make, which is normally around the back of the head, or if you can, completely remove it. As I say, the more you take off, the better. But sort of with knives and scrapers, it's like a little bit of the old-fashioned way of doing it. So now I've got it to that point, I'll move on to what I do. Right, you'll see I have done this wonderful suit that hugs my figure wonderfully. The reason being is I'm about to use the pressure washer just to loosen everything up. You can see the difference between the skull now and the skull when I finish. So we'll get on and get it done. Right, the reason why I pressure wash them prior to boiling them, you can see on a young animal like this, all round the back, all down the front, I've removed probably 3/4 of the flesh without boiling it. That's what it looked like before, and that's what it looks like now. So you can see around the back, you know, it's done all the brain cavity. A lot of flesh has been removed. What it also does is fluff it up and it makes it loose. So again, it's less boiling time. So we'll now move to the boiling process. Okay. Once you get into that stage, it's just a gentle boiling process really. On a young animal, it needs to be boiled a lot less than an older animal. So we'll put him into the pot and see what happens. Right, this one's been boiling now for not long. It's a young animal, it won't need a lot, so it's been boiling for probably 15 minutes. It's a matter of trial and error really. The next process is for me to take it back out and jet wash it, and I'll continue to jet wash it until the flesh won't come off, and then it just goes back in for a few more minutes. On a more mature buck, you would definitely have to boil it longer, definitely, and if it was full skull, create a few little problems because the nose bones are a lot weaker than the top of the skull. So you just have to be your own judge really with what you're doing. The final process of the trophy realistically is to bleach it, and you'll find all these dark colours will just vanish. The skull will be as white as the ones that you'll see later. The chemical that I use is, like most people do, it's peroxide, and this is 35%, which to my knowledge is the strongest you can buy on the market in the UK. You do need to be careful with it. It will burn your skin and it will burn your eyes, so please be careful. You can continue to reuse it, so if you bleach a couple of heads you can just put the bleach back into the container, and you can just continue to reuse it until it loses its strength, which will be quite a while for a normal recreational stalker. For somebody like me who prepares heads commercially, this might last me 12 months. So I'll just get on. And the way that I do it, I don't wrap it up in cotton wool. I don't know if you can actually see that, but basically I've put a small amount of the peroxide into a tray. And the process is very, very easy. Average standard paintbrush. And if you get it to go inside the skull, don't get it on the antlers because it will bleach them completely white. Once it's gone inside the skull, you just need to basically paint the skull. Be as careful as you can around the coronets. You'll notice this one has lost some colour around the coronets through being boiled and cleaned. You always will on very young bucks because they don't work the antlers as hard, so they don't create the colour. There's always a little bit of dead velvet around them. But if you just continue just to put the peroxide up against the skull, make sure it's all completely covered, which is relatively obvious because it's wet. And you do need to get it absolutely everywhere. If you've got any remains of flesh, cartilage, gristle, fat, the bleach, it may lighten it, but it will not bleach it. In the end, your skull will go yellow on them specific spots. So you do need to, the better you clean it, the better finish you'll have. And once it's completely covered in the peroxide, I'll stand them on there so any excess will drip off and drip back in. I'll repeat that process every 10 to 15 minutes, and I do that for 3 hours. I find that 3 hours with 35% strength bleach peroxide is more than enough. I think the days of wrapping it in cotton wool and leaving it for 24 hours like most books would recommend have long gone. At the end of 3 hours, I can't do it with this one unfortunately to show you, but if you just submerge it into a bucket of cold water, shake it to neutralise the peroxide, and then just leave it anywhere to dry. Leave it to dry naturally and your trophy will be finished. Something you can pass down to your son and your grandson, stay in the family for years. The trophy that I'm preparing today will end up like these two, which is like a long nose cut. If you want the trophy measured to see whether it is an official trophy, the best thing to do is keep it like the one in the middle here, which is left full skull, and have it done that way. It can be cut later if you want to mount it a different way. You can see there's multiple ways that you can mount the trophy, whether it be on a pedestal mount or on a wall or on the shield. These particular two are mine, which will end up being mounted with this in the middle, which is some steel leaves that are made to replicate beech leaves, because these two deer was called for me by a man who I can only describe as a witch. It's as simple as that. His technique is phenomenal. When it comes to medal-head trophies like the ones you can see in front of me, you do need to leave it full skull in fairness. Those were supplied to me to prepare by Bees Motor Service UK, who obviously had one fantastic rut this year.
A trophy is something that can be treasured for a lifetime. It could be your first kill or your biggest conquest, but it's personal to you and your hunting experience. To find out more about the range of services offered by Keith Watson of K&A Services, visit keithshighseats.co.uk. To find out more about the Isuzu Huntsman, visit isuzuoutdoorlife.co.uk. Subscribe to Team Wild TV to keep up to date with all of the best hunting shows on the web.